Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Narrative Wargamer Podcast. I am Tony Rhodes, and tonight I'm joined by not one, but two Dans. So of course, tonight we have Red Tooth, Dan number one.
Hello.
And of course we have Mr. Garage Hobbit himself, Dan A.
Right, it's garage. How difficult is it to say? Garage.
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 I don't know.
Garage.
I don't know why that one. I do not know why that one always slips away from me. But yes, Garage Hobbit Daniel.
Hello.
So yes, we've got both Dans tonight, and I don't know how obvious it is to our long-term listeners, but for some reason we infamously often have technical issues when we get both Dans in the same room. So hopefully that won't happen tonight.
Fingers crossed.
Welcome back. Welcome once again to the Narrative Wargamer Podcast. To those listening on podcasting platforms, welcome. And to those watching us on YouTube, it's wonderful to actually have the show up there now as well on a more regular basis. So yeah, I've been enjoying getting it up on YouTube as well, and it seems like people are enjoying it and finding the show. So yes, welcome. Tonight we've got a few interesting things we're going to be talking about, and part of that is what we've been up to recently, because Daniel has been up to something very interesting. Daniel, where have you been recently?
I got to go to one of the coolest little, and I say little, it is relatively little, events called Bring Out Your Lead, which, if you've never been, is basically the mecca of all old and middle hammer, which I didn't even realise middle hammer was a thing, but it is a thing. Middle hammer, yeah, it's the particular editions. I took.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think middle hammer is sort of like, from a 40k perspective, I think that's like 3rd edition to 5th, that kind of period of time.
It turns out I am of the middle hammer generation.
You're of the middle hammer. And my neighbour and I, we took our 2nd edition of Armies to play, and it was amazing because we were effectively, imagine Glastonbury for wargaming. That's effectively what we walked into at the weekend. It was pouring with rain. We were in the middle of a field/farm. People were getting covered in mud, stuck in mud, where there was marquees, and effectively we were going to play in one of the barns there, but there was a hole in the roof, so we have sort of got moved to the pyramid stage of the wargamer event, and got to play in front of loads of people. It was great. It was just it's fantastic. It's run by the Foundry Games host it, so it's a fantastic little event, and there were lots of people. It was really enjoyable, and my goodness, there was so much to explain, and I'm rambling in my rambly type way. There we go.
Not at all. I mean, so it's funny how you first introduced me to the event about a year ago. I mean, I say introduced. I've not had a chance to go yet. I would like to go next year, hopefully, depending on when and where it happens. But it sounds like it sounded like a great idea when you first told me about it, and having seen pictures of it, this last week from on like social media and everybody who went posting about it, that looks great.
Yeah,
like I say,
it's got
old hammer brought to life, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, it's got everything. People running Rogue Trader games, people running a massive game, and I do apologise to whoever runs it. My neighbour is much better with names, but there's always a massive game of Necromunda.
Worth pointing out that Daniel's neighbour is also a big Warhammer player, not just boasting how good he is with names.
No, I don't just randomly drag my neighbours to events. He actually plays 40k. We play quite regularly. But yeah, and weirdly, John Blanche was just like hanging out playing Necromunda, and it was just quite cool to see him do that. It's quite a bizarre, surreal experience to watch him and a load of other people play Necromunda. Just bonkers, but there you go.
Yeah, so this was it was in Nottingham, wasn't it, this time?
Yes.
Which is where traditionally it's been held. We don't know if that's where it's going to be next year, but that's yet to be determined. So there was a selection of interesting Warhammer personalities there, by the sounds of it, and it sounds like you got a chance to rub shoulders.
Yes, I did. I got to meet Louise Sugden, which was pretty awesome. She's a very nice lady, and I got very, very starstruck and said, "Would you really mind doing a selfie? Because my daughter really likes watching you on YouTube with me, and it would be really good. Thanks." And she was lovely and said yes.
Your daughter,
and she
right?
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It is.
Sure.
It is.
She's like, "All right, Dad, you can say if you want to get the."
So Louise really appreciates the fact that a lot of gamers of my generation watch YouTube painting videos with their kids. So it's just really nice to have her as a positive role model, and she's lovely. She's so nice. She's very lovely. So I did get a bit starstruck. I also saw, but did not get to talk to, Trish and is it Trish Moore? The Monster Lady. That's her tag on Instagram.
Yes. She was
Yes.
on the.
Yeah.
She was on Pinterest.
Yeah, she was. And I also saw Gary Morley. I went, "Oh, that's Gary Morley," and he went, "All right." He didn't go all right. I didn't speak to him because again, he was there though. I just get embarrassed and the last time I spoke to someone vaguely famous from GW, I said something rather silly, which I was discussing before we came on. Would you like to hear the story now, Tony? Because it is quite a funny story.
Oh yeah, go on. Actually, you were going to tell us the story before we started recording, but we never got into it.
And I do have people who can prove this happened because they do bring it up. But I accidentally chatted up Graham McNeil when. So those of you who lived in the South London area at the time, the third. Did he do the third? Or no, he did the second Horus Heresy book when that was coming out.
Yep.
And and he was doing some signings at an event called Conflict, which I was working at the time because I used to work for GW. And I wanted my copy signed because I thought, yeah, that would be great. So I walked up to him, all confidence, really excited. "Oh, it's Graham McNeil, is that?" And I got really nervous. I go, "Hi Graham, would you please sign my book for me?" He went, "Yes, sure, I'd love to." And then it happened. I started talking without engaging my brain and said, "You look like you've been working out." Yeah. You look really good. How are you doing? And he was like, "Well, why, thank you. I have been. Thanks very much." So,
Amazing.
and he appreciated the compliment, but my friends couldn't help wetting themselves with laughter with the fact that I was casually trying to shout out Graham McNeil after he signed my book. So, yeah, he probably
amazing.
won't remember that, but it was quite an amusing thing at the time. So, yes. So I do.
You might do. Sounds like it was a nice compliment.
Well, exactly. That's what I thought. It was a nice compliment. I said he's got nice guns, and that was that.
I was going to say, surely you should have got him to sign your book, Galaxy in Gains.
I've still got the signed copy of the book as well. So it's it's quite funny. But yeah, that was my weekend. It was full of awesome 40k goodness, and it was just really nice having people come up to me and saying, and watching the game and looking at it and go, "Oh wow, this looks like out of the page of the White Dwarf." I would love to say that I had some sort of dealings in the terrain that was made, but that was all my neighbour Chris, who makes amazing second edition style terrain. In fact, he uses the templates from Rogue Trader and the Here We Go book from, I think it's Here We Go, one of the Freebooters and Here We Go. Well, the two Rogue Trader books that have got a load of stuff in, but yeah, really, really good.
Yeah. So this is the second edition game you played with bright blue ultramarines against multicolored orcs, right?
Yep, the early 90s, mid 90s style White Dwarf-esque type game, and it was just really nice having people come up to you with big grins on their face, going, "I remember looking at this through a page in White Dwarf." I was like, "Oh, thanks, guys." We even had the spiky cacti, which are dangerous.
The spiky plant.
Really
I remember
dangerous.
those well.
Yeah, I could only imagine. But yeah, like I saw those pictures on your Instagram, and it looked impressive. Like it looked like they were taken from an old White Dwarf, like as if he were there as the photographer for White Dwarf taking the pictures. Because those orc buildings are just so classic, you know, sort of like the desert mud hut, not mud huts, but you know what I mean, like
the mud hut type style with the flat adobe buildings. That's I think that's their name. You'll be pleased to know, Tony, that the orcs won again, as they usually do. However, some standout moments in the game, and this is for the narrative aspect of it. I had Calgar and Tigerius, and I won't go through the rules because it will be just too complicated to explain, but just bear in mind that Marnius Calgar was teleported across the entire table to hit a mech with a shock attack gun with his fists and then continue to beat up the warlord, and basically play a game of ping pong with being teleported across everywhere, smashing people in the face with his fists. It was hilarious.
That sounds brilliant.
And an orc goth mob threw grenades at a rhino, destroyed the bolt gun on the rhino, which then detonated the magazine on the rhino, which blew the rhino up, killing everyone inside.
Perfect.
Because second edition.
Best kind of orc ballistic skill there. Throw explosives.
Well, this is of a time where orcs had decent ballistic skill. This is pre. Orcs will have, instead of shooters, they'd have bolt pistols, and they had ballistic skill 3, which is pretty outstanding. They only became, I can do this, I'm sorry, I'm going to get my pipe out and go, they only became ballistic skill 2 because of the battle report that they did in the one based on Zulu. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, the Orcs Drift one.
Yes. So basically, they wrote in the rules that they reduced the ballistic skill down to 2, and they kind of kept it for third edition.
It was reduced ballistic skill by 1 and increased weapon skill by 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which has basically stuck since for all orcs.
Yeah. And ever since, their solution to ballistic skill has generally been just give them more shots.
Yep. Which
more bullets.
More bullets, because more bullets is good.
You know, the amount of times I say to people when I'm playing games of orcs, it's like I more or less achieve the same statistical output as like most other units when it comes to shooting. It's just that I have to roll 4 times as many dice to get
and it takes 4 times as long.
Yeah, and it takes 4 times as long because of it.
That's awesome. Yes. Sorry, Tony.
No, I was going to say, like, it looks like something that I'd love to get down to myself and see. Like, so I don't particularly own, like, you know, a selection of second edition armies or even many of my old, like, third edition armies and stuff like that. And I'm sure a lot of listeners don't either. But that's not something that's an issue because it sounds like the sort of event I'd love to just go down to as a spectator. You know, just like come down, hang out, see all the boards, see all the games. You know, just see this piece of, you know, Games Workshop history brought to life.
It's worth, if you can ever get it's running Foundry's at the moment currently it's running Foundry Games' HQ, and they've got all of the old first Rogue Trader GW stuff. They've got the Gene Stealer limo that they made. They've got all in cabinets, so you can see it and view it and stuff. So there's like all the old horrors, all the Chaos Warriors, the RTBO ones, Space Marine. It's really quite good from a history point of view if you're interested in that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Like I said, I think I'll try and make it to next year's one if I can.
I definitely recommend it. I mean, there were a lot more people there this year than I've seen there usually. So yeah, it's worth a go.
Get in before it becomes too popular and
the hipsters, the hipster crowd coming in, and
I was there back in the day, man. You don't know what it's like.
I mean, I can officially say that I started on second edition, so I was there, literally there, playing second edition.
And amazingly, you say that Dave's never actually made it, despite being probably our resident oldhammer head, more so.
Yeah, I've tried to get him to come, but he's always usually on holiday or something. He would definitely very much enjoy it. And he probably, what's scary is he probably owns already most of the stuff they've got on show there, so he probably has 2 of them.
There you go. If ever they need to double capacity, all we have to do is ring up Dave.
I think Dave is one of the only people that Warhammer will ring up when they need to do a special display of something. Oh, we haven't got this because we accidentally lost it. I know who has one, Dave. And he, in my mind, he's got like a special Dave bat phone that he picks up. That's a direct line to Warhammer World. Who ring him up and go, oh, we need this, and he goes, hang on, I've got 6. I'll just go and find them in my cupboard. And then he pulls out like 6 of them. I like to think. I have no proof, but I'm pretty certain.
Well,
is that a special red phone with a skull on it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2 skulls.
Yeah. Warhammer branded, obviously.
Yeah. Love you, Dave.
So that's what Daniel's been up to recently. Dan, how about yourself? What have you been up to? Have you been getting?
What have I been up to?
Hands-on with, much more hands-on.
I mean, 10th edition? Yeah, I've been playing some 10th edition. How about that? That's the thing that's been spoken about before here, but not by me. So I really like 10th edition. It's cool. There's lots of good stuff in it. It's kind of obviously a bit balances all over the place at the moment, but they'll fix it. I just appreciate that they've sort of rounded off a lot of the weird ragged corners of it from previous editions.
Yeah, I'd say we've sort of touched on it a couple of episodes ago, where it seems a lot smoother, a lot more streamlined. I think the gameplay is a lot better and quicker. I've recently played another game of it for the channel, actually. I've got a Aldari versus Orcs game, which will be coming up soon. And to say that, even that was like a game against an army I've not played in all of 9th edition and now in 10th, and was on camera as well. It didn't take us anywhere near as long. It was a lot better. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that. I'm looking forward to getting that on the channel and sort of demonstrating our first 10th edition battle report. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. Like I say, it's interesting how there's some discussion and debate over balance issues at the moment, but that's more by the by for us. We're just playing, having fun, enjoying our armies. Like,
I mean, it certainly has an effect. You don't want to play games where one side is just going to win regardless. But like I say, they'll definitely fix it. It's, it was always going to be wonky at the start.
I mean, it's worth saying as well that obviously you've just given a relatively positive review of your experience, and you've played the majority of your games, as far as I can tell, with your Death Guard, which I've had a bit of...
Yes, I've been playing Death Guard. They are quite bad.
I mean, tell us how you really think, Dan.
And yeah, it seems like you've been having fun with them, and from what I've been seeing when you've been posting in like the Discord and stuff, like you've been in games. It's not like you've been, getting curb stomped for playing with Death Guard.
No, I mean, granted, I haven't played against like Eldari with all of the mortal wound spam, or against Imperial Knights or Custodes, or the the top tier stuff. But I played a couple of games earlier in the week, and I beat Space Wolf's player and had a narrow loss against Sisters of Battle. So they were both good games. It was just fun.
I can't understand why they don't have Feel No Pain. They've always had something like that, except second edition. But they've always had something that makes them go just tougher. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, they've still got the extra toughness, but it's not quite enough.
Yeah, like I know they had this in ninth as well, but like the contagion ability obviously kind of makes them incrementally more tougher than their opponent by reducing their opponent's toughness.
Yeah,
but I know what you're saying. That extra feel no pain introduction or something.
Or the thing I thought would be very narrative and give them a bit more teeth is, instead of those contagion ranges making your opponent one less toughness, actually giving them +1 to wound against those targets would be quite cool, and also make a big difference on the heavier toughness side of things.
Powerful.
It would be, but come on, they need all the help they can get at the moment.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. I'd take it. I've heard other people suggest that they just give everything an extra wound, which that'd be cool too. Plague Prince with 3 wounds, I'd take that.
I think that would be oppressive, but yeah.
The 9th edition Chaos Space Marine conundrum.
Yes. But generally speaking, yes, I'm enjoying it. I've had fun in all my games so far. They haven't been totally one-sided. It's a good addition, I think, because the game kind of plays. It's smoother, but it's also just more like an engaging game, isn't it? There's less of the thing where your opponent just rolls loads of dice at you and all your men fall over. And that's that.
Yeah. I've been surprised at how more survivable things are now. Like, not just in the sense of like obviously tanks and things are a bit tougher, but that is a significant difference. Like, I've noticed, like tanks and vehicles are not just falling over in the way they were before, or could do. And in certain instances, I do think a lot of armies have got more resilience built into various units in their armies that aren't just vehicles and so on. I mean, you and me, Dan, have talked about this before, about just how tough orc boys are now.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, the majority of that toughness comes from a combination of the different characters that can join the units, the couple of stratagems that are available to them, and the increase to their armor save. Like, just going from being army-wide 6-up armor saves to army-wide 5-up armor saves as your baseline, suddenly, when you're moving that unit of orc boys into cover, and actually you've got toughness 5 models with 4+ save, they're not dying to weapons that don't have any AP.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that lost AP as well.
Like, it's surprising how survivable an orc actually is when he gets a 4+ save on a dice, be it from a custom force field, be it from cover, be it from the go-to-ground stratagem, which is all of a sudden great on a unity of orc boys, because it doesn't actually have any negative effect on them. It just gives them benefit of cover in the open, which, again, putting them on a 4-up save, if you know you're going to use that stratagem against an AP dash attack, it's actually really good for them.
Yeah.
And it seems like there are similar things in a lot of the other armies where, units have certain stratagems or abilities or characters that add layers of survivability to units that otherwise aren't naturally as tough.
I don't think it's just survivability. I think it's generally like the capability of units in general. Which kind of gets onto a thing I've been wanting to talk about a bit, is that it feels like Games Workshop have been, over the past 10 years or so, moving the game more towards trying to emulate the sort of like cinematic feel you get from the sort of the Black Library books and the narrative in general, because it used to feel like the narrative of the game and the game itself was completely disconnected. Like when Space Marines were just dying instantly all the time, and couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. And there was this big disconnect between what they're supposed to be versus the tabletop. And I think they've been trying to like remedy that all around. So
I think
almost everything has like a special ability, right? That kind of makes the unit do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, like for example, one of the ones that I think is really funny, but also narratively driven. Well, actually, it's not even funny. It's just good. It's like narratively driven and effectively unit. Orc looters in this new index version, they've got, so they're effectively like not orc artillery, but they're the orc heavy weapons, like Devastator equivalents. They've got a base. Their ability is that they get to reroll ones to hit against basically any target. But if they're firing at a target which is on an objective marker, they get to reroll all failed to hits. But
nice.
the rule is called like get off our loot. Like, so the idea is that they're not shooting these enemies because they're particularly more accurate or strategically more viable to fire at them than anyone else. It's the fact that they see as the enemy are taking their good loot. So they're more incentivized to blast them off it and be like, get out of here, that's ours.
Is that they get more accurate because they don't want to shoot the good bits?
Possibly.
That sounds very similar to, like, in the narrative sort of way. My favorite rule that I like so far in a very fluff type way is the Tech Marine and Tech Priest rule, which I love the image of this. It's basically, if a vehicle dies within 12 inches of a Tech Marine or a Tech Priest, he gets really cross and doubles his attacks. Yeah. I just love that idea of this really irritated Tech Priest going, "You what? How dare you blow that up? What? I spent ages buffing and polishing and waxing and litanies and this and that, and you go ahead and blow it up. Right, I'm getting my axe and I'm going after you." I just love that idea, but they just get really annoyed.
How dare you?
How dare you?
That was a
amazing.
sacred piece of ancient archaeotechnology. It was a functioning Lehman Russ. Now it's not.
That tank survived 10,000 years until some orc shot it because it was standing next to some loot.
I mean, I also like the fact that works with a Cyclops demolition vehicle. So, so he's like so indecisive. He can't. I really need to blow this thing up. Oh, but I spent ages making it. Oh, I'm so angry.
Amazing.
Like, damn it! But I named that one.
Oh dear.
But like, I do think another a good example of it is the new Gravis Apothecary. How basically his like special ability represents him being on his own little side quest, and like I can't remember the trigger condition, but it's the thing where when X thing is achieved by him or his unit, his personal objective control value goes up by like +9.
Yeah, that's because he's basically discovered the thing he needs to use, and
He basically he's acquired whatever sample or important thing that he was trying to achieve on the battlefield in his own little role, which means that like he's now a strategically important and viable asset on the table. Like what he
is the objective.
An extra objective. So wherever he goes is like crucial to the battle plan at this point now. So how that sort of translates into being like he now has high objective control, because if he's at an objective, then he's a high value thing to the Space Marines. Like that's an interesting idea that I think plays out well as an interesting method for using objective control as a new game mechanic. Like,
Yeah.
I discovered recently that the Spoil Pox Scrivener for Nurgle Demons, and I think there's a couple of similar abilities in other armies, where his like leader ability is that when he joins a unit, all the models in that unit increase their objective control by 1.
Yeah.
But what's important about that is not only does it take Plague Bearers from OC2 to OC3 per Plague Bearer, which is pretty great when then you've got like OC 33 or whatever from him and his unit at full strength. And it's just like 10 dudes. But importantly, that's a modifier. So if the unit ever becomes battle shocked, they have an OC value of 0 plus 1 per model from his ability.
Yeah.
So even whilst battle shocked,
handy.
the unit still has an OC value. So they can still hold objectives. And it's obviously it makes a notable difference on the unit's OC value in total, and you would rather them not be battle shocked, but it doesn't render them useless if they are.
Yeah. God, banners do something very similar. So they increase the OC value by 1, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think there's a few similar effects in the game.
Yeah, I think the Dark Angels, isn't that their whole thing? Like their detachment is something similar to that.
Yeah.
But just an interesting point to be like, so actually it's 0 plus 1, not 3 reduced to 0, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because you do them the replacement first and then add the modifiers.
Yeah. So you say obviously you've been playing a few games, Dan. What missions have you been playing then? Have you mostly been playing the Leviathan deck, as it were?
Yeah, I've been playing the Leviathan deck. I think all of my games, apart from the one I played with you, where we just did the basic core rules mission.
Basically the intro mission.
I've played the punting servo skulls one twice now, which is I particularly like because it's a bit silly, and like half the secondary cards don't really interact with it very well because they say like, you've got to hold an objective at the end of your turn or something, and you don't want to do that. You want to kick it onto the enemy's side.
So is that one a little bit like the what's it called?
Bad Squig.
The Bad Squig mission, the Break the Stalemate one.
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's the one. So that's the one from Octarius that I use in the Crucible of War, where it's the lineup of 5 objectives, and you try to move them into the opponent's side of the table, so that yours.
Yes, it's like that, except there's 3 of them.
Right. Yeah.
And you get more points the further they are towards your opponent's deployment zone. And obviously your opponent is trying to kick it back to the middle and away into your side and stuff.
It's funny because
it's
that
very interesting.
That is one of the missions I picked out from the very beginning of the Crucible of War when it was first in that Warzone book. As I thought, like, this feels like one of the real standout missions. It's just such a clever and simple idea, executed really well, and everyone who's played it at any of the events have always commented on really enjoying it. So it's interesting to see that particular mission mechanic has made its way into like one of the 10th edition core missions, effectively.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant mission.
It feels like the one that a lot of people are going to not like because it's different.
Yes. I always find in most of these GT packs and similar in recent years, there's always talk of a Black Sheep mission. That's the one and it's usually considered the Black Sheep because there's something about it that's just mechanically different or off compared to the others, which
God
often
forbid.
it doesn't conform. And instead is something more akin to the sort of missions that we play all the time. Whenever I play.
Yeah.
So like the the Orc versus Eldar game that we played the other week, and say I won't give any spoilers, but the mission itself, it was one of these ones where we have like 5 objective markers, and each battle round from turn 2 onwards, one of them disappears.
Oh, cool.
Right.
And the scoring is like hold 1 or more, hold 2 or more, and then at the end of the battle round, whoever holds the most scored an extra 10.
Right.
Which will be interesting because then rolling into the next round immediately after that is when one of them would then disappear. So you'd think you would like be holding the 2 or more that you need to hold, and then actually one of the ones you hold might disappear, and then you've only got 1 or more or none.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was fun. And that was taken from the Tyrannic Warbook. So in the original law for that mission is that it's meant to be securing archaeotech from vaults and stuff like that. Basically, like, the world is ending, the Tyranids are consuming this planet, quick, we need to try and evacuate everything of value. Yeah. So that's when things are either getting devoured or have otherwise now been secured and extracted. And like the spin we put on it was that it was the Eldar were trying to claim some fallen soul stones. So it was about trying to either recover the soul stone or before it gets captured or damaged or broken or destroyed or whatever by the orcs.
Eaten, yeah.
Yeah. Or it could be that, like, if it's disappeared from the battlefield, it's because the Eldar have now collected it. Like, they now have that, soul stone, so it's not lying around anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, and there's a whole bunch of these missions in there with some interesting mission rules that play to particular factions as well, I think. There's there's one of the missions where the mission rule is that any unit that is within range of an objective marker that they control, that unit extends all aura abilities it has by like 6 inches.
Oh, wow.
Which is particularly fun for the Death Guard, because it obviously expands their contagion range.
Yeah.
See? Silver lining. You just have to play a very niche mission. Yeah, all the time.
Sure. That'll work.
Yeah, because so that one, again, the original narrative of it is it's meant to be about striking back at a particular neural node network of the Tyranids. So the idea is that any Tyranids that are on the objective markers are extending their synapse range because they're using the neural network.
Fair enough.
But I do like repurposing it to be like, this mission is for a Death Guard ritual. So obviously, like any Death Guard that are on the objective markers, they're currently extending their contagions and their aura abilities and so on because they're currently empowering the ritual at those ritual sites.
They're extra stinky.
Extra stinky.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting the point you make, Dan, how like if you compare what effectively the battlefield role and effectiveness of a single 6th edition tactical marine is versus how a 10th edition intercessor behaves, you could definitely see that shift from like a space marine being considered a rank and file human, even though superhuman, you just being a rank and file, guy with a gun, to more the cinematic Black Library storytelling of the superhuman with 2 wounds and fancy war gear and combat doctrines and all the rest of it, taking to the field of battle and holding to his oath of moment.
Yeah, and they're obviously doing it where they're balancing the game around it. So, that Space Marine is getting more powerful, but so are the Orcs who've got toughness 5 now, and so on, and so are the Tyranids who have extra bonuses. They got loads of extra attacks and wounds or strength or whatever. They like it just feels like the game is more designed with the intent that you enjoy the narrative of it as it plays, rather than like you have a story of it and then the game just happens, like unrelated to that.
Yeah, I mean, even little things like we're talking about, the whole Servo Skull mission, it doesn't just feel so much like these are just blips on the table that represent some unknowable objective marker. It's more like these are servo skulls which are being pursued around the table, in an attempt to scan and secure data and so on.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with 9th edition, didn't we, when they put in the GT packs, but themed them all slightly around certain war zones or whatever. Retrieve Octarius data and all that.
Yeah, and then Nakbun data, and then Nephilim data, and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Do you think they have a real issue with GDPR in the 41st millennium?
Yeah, probably.
They can't even agree on the official imperial date.
I know, but I just feel like there's a lot of data downloads without anyone asking whether it's the right thing to do or whether anyone's got permission to do it.
Yeah, it's true. There's lots of scrap code going around as well, though, isn't there?
Exactly.
You need to be careful of that.
Always just transmitting stuff into space, never putting any VPNs on any of this.
Yep, absolutely. It's not safe. It's not good. It's not good practice.
You can't transmit data securely unless you have a very powerful Necron. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, a very powerful Necron. Is that what VPN stands for? Very powerful Necron.
This podcast sponsored by very powerful Necron. Well, from the Nord dynasty.
So, you say, Dan, obviously, how it's nice to see this, shift in how some of the units perform and behave on the table to feel more, like lore thematic and grandiose. Because I do think it's always funny how one of the problems that 40k has always suffered from is if you read anything about the faction that you play and you don't just pick them up for essentially meta chasing purposes, like if you pick them up because you have an invested interest in their lore and who they are in the universe and the role or threat that they pose to the galaxy as a whole, 99% of the factions always obviously come across as being basically the best of the best, the biggest badasses, the ones with the most technological advantage ever. And it's like all of them in theory are effectively meant to be superpowers, unbeatable threats, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
In a world where the superhuman space marine is often referred to as the baseline, stat unit of the game.
Yeah.
Like, there's always I always remember the days of like 6th and 7th edition where various special rules would often represent certain negatives to be implied on units. Even things like, here's the good old fear rule, but literally every space marine in the game is immune to fear because they have the literal no fear rule.
This rule will only affect about 2 armies in the game.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, all space marines, they're all immune to fear. Great. All Necrons, they're all leadership 10. They're basically never going to fail the test. Tyranids, terrible leadership, but they're always in synapse range, so they always automatically pass. And I loved, there was this flow chart that was basically for a lot of these special rules was always like, does it affect X, Y, and Z? Like demons, fearless, and so on, because they're demons, ethereal entities from beyond reality. They don't have mortal fear. So they always just came down to basically this rule affects guard.
Yeah.
That was about it.
Guard and orcs.
And you're welcome.
Yeah. And sometimes it didn't even like really bother orcs a great deal,
If you had a big
the amount
enough
of times
mob.
yeah, the amount of times be things like, oh, the night fighting rules affect everybody except for anyone in power armor because they're a space marine and they have acute senses. Anyone who is an Eldari because they have heightened senses. Tyranids because they are biologically adapted to fighting any hazardous environment, so they're not affected by the dark. So of course they have night vision. Demons, again, they have ephemeral sight. Doesn't matter for them. They see people's souls through the warp. They don't. So basically, again, guard and maybe orcs. Who can't see in the dark. Great. And yeah, it's this interesting dichotomy how every time you throw two factions together, both players, purely from the lore in their codex, probably feel like, well, of course, my Space Marines should be able to defeat these Tyranids because look at all the resources and training and biological enhancements and everything that goes into making a Space Marine. We have tyrannic war veterans. We literally have stories in the lore about the first company of Space Marines or the Ultramarines fighting off to defend the entire invading force on Macragge. I mean, admittedly, they died to a man to achieve it, but they did it. Like these 100 Space Marines fighting off an entire invasion fleet. You feel like, of course, they should be able to kill these Tyranids. But then, of course, you have the Tyranid player that's read up about all these perfectly biologically adapted killing machines and all the ways that they can circumvent all these different, defenses and how they're always adapting faster than their, prey worlds can possibly respond to or learn from. And they talk about prey worlds as being literally just that, snacks for lunch. They come and go. It's just assumed that they successfully devour worlds at a time. And actually, it's a real effort to actually fortify and defend a world long enough to hold off a hive fleet because it's just considered an inevitability. Of course, my Carnifex should rip this squad of Terminators, but then the Space Marine player also thinks, well, of course, my squad of Terminators should kill this Carnifex.
Yeah. The game of 40k always represents like a climactic battle. Like if it were a Black Library novel, this would be the final chapter, right?
Yes. Or the actual game on the tabletop represents just a small portion of the larger battle that's happening. But because this is where.
But the most important part.
Yeah, that's the bit you're zooming in on. So
this is the bit where Mortarion turned up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting how it's difficult to walk away from some games without someone having a feel bad. From the perspective of like, well, I'm used to my. It's the typical thing of people always often say with Space Marines is like they don't feel like Space Marines because they die too easily, or they don't kill enough, or there's not enough of them, or whatever. But
do you think though, Tony, that's the limitations of a tabletop wargame? And I'm not talking about 40k specifically here. I'm talking about at the end of the day, it is a game and can only be certain things can only happen due to the restrictions of said rules. So
absolutely, yes. And I think it's about finding that balance between that abstracting of the rules and the law to be able to represent the fact that we can play a game that represents a battle between Space Marines and Tyranids, regardless of whether or not within the setting that particular fight is either a forlorn hope for one of the factions because it's either the Space Marines know that they're just fighting to the last and they're not going to survive this conflict as a whole, or the only reason the Space Marines are there is because they're mopping up the remnants of a essentially beaten hive fleet and they're just resecuring Imperial planets. It's very rare that, like you say, the actual lore of the conflict wouldn't have a more than likely predetermined outcome. But on the tabletop, it comes down to, the cards drawn, the objective seized, the dice rolled, and it lets us create that sense of tension and story, within our game.
Yeah, like you can't have both armies being the main character of the book, right?
Exactly.
If we're going with the Black Library novel analogy.
Yeah.
Unless it's what was it, Prospero Burns and 1,000 Suns.
Well, I was about to say it'll be interesting to see how they do the new Belisarius Cole meets Fabius Bile book.
That is a thing, isn't it? It's coming out.
Yeah, that's a thing that is coming out because, like I said, that's two very interesting characters where you would have to assume, especially the way it's been built, they're both going to get a significant amount of story time, and their motives and whatever they're going to be clashing over. But yeah, I mean, so for me personally, I know that the way I found that I've made my peace with this aspect of the game and the hobby is that's why I don't play Space Marines.
That's cheating.
I play a lot of the antagonistic races, a lot of the ones where, regardless of the outcome at the table, it feels like a satisfying end. Because with my orcs, it's either, if I'm fighting Space Marines, it's like, well done, the Space Marines, they saved the day and defeated the orcs. Great, that's what they're meant to do. They're Space Marines, even if it was a close-fought battle and they, suffered heavily to achieve it. But if the orcs win, it's still one of those things where it's like, yeah, it feels like orcs win battles. They do, destroy worlds. They do inflict horrendous casualties on Space Marines. But also at the same time, orcs are often in the lore ultimately defeated. That there's a time when, back in 3rd, maybe 4th edition, orcs might have been seen as the existential threat of the galaxy. They're always there. There's too many of them. They'll never really be stopped. If they were ever to unite, they'll be an unstoppable force. That role these days, for me, feels more fulfilled by the Tyranids. They are the existential threat to the galaxy as a whole. That's like this inevitable, end of all sort of threat. And the orcs fulfill more a force of nature. They're more like a natural disaster. They come crashing through. They're an inevitability that just cannot be stopped and has to be dealt with and has to be weathered and survived.
Sure.
They're never going to be defeated.
They're just there.
They're just there.
And you can't do anything about it.
It's just annoying. Just.
But then the same is true of so the other two main armies that I own are Chaos Demons, specifically demons, not like Chaos Space Marines, and Necrons. Both of which have a very similar vibe and feel to them. If the demons are defeated by whatever army they're playing against, great. They defeated the demonic incursion this day. But also at the same time, if the demons do succeed, then that's a thing that happens. Chaos does consume worlds and planets, and the demons have ravaged reality that day, and that's fine. But again, I don't feel bad if my demons get defeated, because that's a very crucial point of lore again. It's like the slaying of the demon, the banishing, the holding back of chaos another day.
On that note of playing the antagonist factions, my point that Games Workshop are slowly trying to make the whole process of the game more like in line with lore. I assume we've all noticed that in the past decade or so, they've been releasing far more books that are about not the Imperium.
Yes. And I think we discussed this at another point, of which I can't remember, but Gazgul Prophet of the War is one of the best books I've ever read. It's brilliant. It's so good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yes, I read it. It was great. It is a good book. And yeah, you're right. There's often this not joke as such because it is true. Effectively, this idea that when someone's new to the setting and the environment or the game, one of the first questions is often like, "So who's the good guys and who's the bad guys?" And obviously, anyone who knows the universe and the lore knows that there are no good guys. It's all bad guys or morally grey at best.
Yeah.
Like the Imperium is not a good place. It is not the good guys.
Oh, no.
Is simply
It never has been.
It never has been.
It's awful.
Space Marines are not angelic heroes. They are genetically engineered, like human monsters. Effectively, they are, machines of war, devoid of empathy and humanity, and that's the whole point about being post-human and transhuman and all the rest of it is they give up their humanity to become these living weapons. And it's great, selling the idea of a space marine to the new 10-year-old who wants to get into the hobby. Try explaining to the mother buying those space marines the actual indoctrination process that goes into creating a space marine and where that abducted child has come from and gone through to become the hero of the setting. And then suddenly you get a clearer picture of what the Imperium is.
It's fine. It's fine. It's not a problem.
It feels just as valid to root for the Orcs or the Necrons or the Tyranids or anyone else as it is to root for the Space Marines, right?
Yeah. But that's what makes 40k. If it didn't have
exactly,
it would. That's what makes 40k. The whole point, it's not in the grim darkness of the far future. There's only war for a reason. That that's what makes it so different and so enjoyable. Is you can take great entertainment from sending hordes of guardsmen to their deaths, or you can find slight amusement when an orc weapon backfires and he accidentally shoots his mate. And that's what's fun. It's quite British. It's very British. It's that sort of laughing at sort of very bleak things, which is cool.
It's not so much like for the Imperium. While there has been a slight shift away from this in recent years, it's never been about the fight for the survival of the human race and the expansion of the Imperium and the Empire of Man. It's about this is the end times. These are the wars fought during the raging against the dying of the light. Humanity had its chance, and the Horus Heresy burnt it all down. And the Imperium has just been slowly dying ever since. And while the Eldari are the dying race of the setting, they're not. They're just the elder dying race of the setting.
They're the ones that are dying first.
Yeah. You've got the Necrons, the elder dead race of the setting, the Eldari, the elder dying race, the Imperium, the currently dying race, and then the Tau, the ones who think that they're the ones to change it all, but they inevitably will not.
Are they the race that's dead but doesn't realise it yet?
Yeah, pretty much. The greater good is dead. The greater good is a lie. They've reached the point. Yeah, they've reached the point now where they themselves are starting to fall to the sort of necessities of xenophobia and genocide and everything that the universe of 40k forces upon them in order to survive. What was my point of all this? I was making.
I have no idea. It's gone way off tangent. Yeah.
So
40k
obviously,
is a bad place. That's what we're saying.
Yeah. So while there has been a little shift against that with the returns of things like Rebooter Gilliman and now the Lion and so on, and it's funny how it feels like there's more a time of hope and potential brighter future for the Imperium with the return of the Primarchs, but at a time when really it's the worst it's ever been. The whole reason why they're back is because the Great Rift has torn the galaxy in half. Since 8th edition and sort of like the Rift first appearing back in 2017, as it were, like there's been very little actually explored in the lore, even in Black Library, on what it's actually like over in Imperium Nightless. There's only recently novels that have started to actually be set there, like Spears of the Emperor, and I believe the most recent one that's about the Return of the Lion is set.
Yes, it is. Also, the Ark of Omen last book is quite... because that's set in that side, isn't it? Because it's Dante and that lot finding...
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like you say, the Imperium is collapsing slowly, right? That's the whole point. And we all remember the 10th edition launch trailer with Gilliman saying how it's all gone in the toilet because the Tyranids are here.
He looks so upset, bless him. Yep. I've never felt so... I did feel for him. And then I remember he's Rupert Gilliman, and then I think, actually, nah, you probably deserve it. Yes.
I think honestly the saddest part of that was the scene where he's like at the memorial gates of what I believe is meant to be Sanguinius's tomb.
No, I heard it was the Silver Gates of the Emperor, so it's before you go into the palace. I could be wrong, but that's I don't know. Sorry, but if anyone knows, let us know. Because it would be interesting to know.
Either way, it's about that feeling of like forlorn, lost hope. Where he's not even like angry about what the Imperium's become. He's just sad. Like he's just.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed. It's that feeling of like longing for the lost connection with effectively that family member on the other side of that gate, be it either his lost Sanguinius or his father, entombed on the throne. And just been like, it's I'm just alone in the world now, until such time as he's going to bump into the lion.
I mean, you have way looked into that trailer more than me, because I was like, oh, look at the explosions! Yay! There's a screaming killer! Oh, that guy's face melted off! The two different aspects of 40k, the very sort of serious, it's very good, and then, guns, explosions,
And isn't that what 40k is all about?
I mean,
those two things.
Very, very, very sort of, opposites sort of coming together in this sort of bizarre, surreal universe that we love.
And yet it's funny to see the sort of tonal shift of that on the tabletop from the glorious days of the red phase and the goblin green bases back in 2nd edition, where it very much had that more sort of like toy soldiers feel to it, to now the sort of more grimdark aesthetic of the models themselves, even if it is in the sort of cleaner heavy metal style.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that though, because a lot of the writing in the I don't know how familiar you are with it, is really quite like for it. One of the best pieces of short stories is in Angels of Death, where it's this platoon or squad of guardsmen who are trying to assault this cathedral, and can't, because there's like traitor guard in the cathedral, and the Blood Angel veteran assault squad turns up, and they're like, "Oh, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go in there?" He's like, "Yes, we are," and they go in, and the description of the butchery is graphic, to say the least.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, so it is. I think it was more the art style rather than the actual grim darkness of the material.
The art style was very, very grimdark as well. Like everything in 2nd edition in the actual books was very dark and grim, and horrific and nasty, and like probably the worst in that regard that it's been in 40k. But then you had the full color pages of stuff like your battle with bright blue ultramarines versus bright colored orcs with spiky plants, like 2 pages apart.
Yeah, And what I find fascinating, and this kind of, we're going full circle here, which is quite good, is the fact that current GW is taking a hell of a lot of references from second and first and third. So there was even an article in White Dwarf this month about how something might be mentioned way back, and they go, "Cool, we like that idea. We'll establish it, make it more."
I mean, what's the most recent race that got added back to 40k, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Zotes. Zotes.
You have to hear first.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, Blackstone Fortress. It's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is kind of my point, is that Games Workshop have been slowly turning the game into a sort of like patchwork of all the best bits from the past, and making it feel like all that stuff fits. Like in previous editions, we've had stuff where, as described in second edition, the art style and the writing did not fit the way it was painted by the studio and the way the game played, because the game was really weird, right? And we're slowly over time getting closer and closer to the point where it feels right, like as described and as you think it should be.
Yeah,
that's the goal, right? Mean, and they're not there. They never will be perfectly there, but it's getting closer.
Do you think that's helped by them releasing a hell of a lot more Black Library character? I've noticed that's happening a lot as well.
Yes. Yes.
They're releasing a lot more characters. So they've just released the Cadian Sergeant lady, whose name I've forgotten. But you know, the one with the lasgun and the bolt pistol. And amazingly, I think this is the first time ever they've done this, but they've just announced the fact that they've released, I know this is not technically 40k related, but I could see this happening to something like Angels of Death or something. They've released Black Talon as a warband type thing, which is like, oh wow, that's an animation tie-in, which is sensible. So that was, there's a lot of that going on. I notice as the books tie in a lot more with what they've got.
So two things. Firstly, her name is Minka Lesk.
That's the one.
And secondly, does that mean we will have a Henry Cavill miniature one day?
No, because we're never going to get a miniature of the Emperor. We know that.
And it's Valdor. It's Valdor. Valdor is Henry Cavill. You say that there are a lot of miniatures that the designers have based phases on. So, and you'll get the reference, Tony. But the Palanite enforcers from Necromunda, one of the heads is sculpted exactly like the actor who plays the Punisher from the latest series. It's pretty cool. I can't remember the actor's name because again, I'm rubbish with names. But,
I can remember the cast, I can remember the actor's name either. I just know it's Frank Castle is the Punisher's character name. Yeah.
So there is that. I mean, they always do that cheeky sort of stuff, which is.
Yeah, I'd love to see some of the characters from Hammer and Bolter and stuff. You know, like some of those.
Yes.
Because so I remembered one of the things I was circling around to earlier. I sort of lost my train of thought with it all. Was that I think one of my favourite representations to date about what the Imperium and what Space Marines I really like as a whole in the setting is the Hammer and Bolter episode from the perspective of the Eldar.
Whispering Garden. No, Garden of Ghosts is one of the greatest 40k animations ever.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's my favourite Hammer and Bolter episode by far. Just the Ultramarines being represented as the antagonists, of a storyline that is, heartfelt, meaningful, and about the preservation of something good and pure. in the 40k universe, and it's not being destroyed by Tyranids, Orcs, Chaos. It's being destroyed by the Ultramarines because they're xenophobic and they're destroying aliens.
Yeah,
Those bright blue bastards.
I did shed a tear. I did shed a tear when that Space Marine got his head caved in by the Avatar. I was like, oh, that's really sad. He wanted to kill more Xenos and he couldn't. So, I mean, I must disagree with you on the best. I think the best episode of Hammer and Bolter is the Gene Stealer one. If you've not seen it, it's pretty good.
Which
I mean, the ending is obvious. Oh, I mean the one, the planetary evacuation. Yeah.
It is good, and you can see where it's going. But I also like the fact that that like reveal at the end, it totally justifies the actions of the guardsmen earlier turning on the commissar.
Oh yeah. Also, no, go on, Tony. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going because until obviously the twist at the end, I felt like even by guardsman standards, the way and like the conviction that this guy has when he turns on the commissar felt like something that was out of character.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to say something. I'm just going to put in a spoiler. So, what I liked is the fact that it shows why people can't see Gene Stealer cult members normally, because you always think, well, obvious, they're all bald and they got a crest on, but it shows, it kind of semi shows that Gene Stealer cult member right there. It kind of shows how they've got that whole latent psychic, you can't really tell I'm an alien type thing, which they sort of kind of infer at the end of the episode, which is quite cool.
There's a similar plot device they use in Doctor Who regularly that I like it, and very similar to this phenomenon, where it's the like perception phases or filters. They put on these like gadgets. Basically, they don't make you invisible, but the idea is they basically shift you into people's peripheral vision rather than their forevision. So the idea is like, if they really concentrated and if you do something that obviously really draws attention, they will see you. But if you're just passing by, you are just that. You're just a passerby because you're just not drawing the eye. And it's that same sort of phenomenon on obviously like a psychic level, the psychic cloaking that the hive mind and the Tyranids are sort of imposing on anyone trying to view the cultists for what they actually are.
Yeah. Until they want it to be. They do like Gene Stealer cultists, that they're a good baddie, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, because if they succeed, huzzah! Ascension Day has come. Great, woo! That's what they're supposed to do. But also, if they're thwarted and they are defeated, it's like, damn you, Imperium! I'll get you next time.
And there's like a Gene Stealer hybrid shaking all three of his fists.
Yes.
Yeah, they're a particularly good villain because they highlight the sort of flaws of the Imperium, right? Because that's how the cult works. It finds, cruelty and hardship and goes, hey, do you know what's better than this shit life? If you get eaten by aliens in the future, but don't worry about that. We'll work towards that. It'll be fine.
Cthulhu will eat you last.
Yeah. Eat the rich and everyone else.
Yeah, they have a great pension scheme. They've got great benefits. There's 3 square meals a day, which isn't isn't corpse starch, which is a bonus.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see a lot of positives.
I would still one day love to run a 40k tabletop RPG where the party is a Gene Stealer cult trying to take
that'd be
over
fun.
a planet.
Yeah.
I mean,
that would be cool. That would be very cool.
You've naturally got a lot of like the classes in all the Gene Stealer cult characters.
Yeah.
So you've got the class diversity for the party, but also I just love the idea of if it could go one of two ways, you could either run it as like a dead serious 40k like espionage, tabletop RPG thing, or you could have it that slightly comical, like they're always trying but always failing kind of like attitude to it. Where they're just trying their best to take over the planet so they can please their hive mind overlords.
No, because now I've got images of Pinky and the Brain in Gene Stealer cult format. What are we trying to do this week? Gene Stealer trying to take over the world.
And today we're going to do it by this cockamamie plan, because apparently for whatever reason you really need to loot an Arvis lighter and fly it up to the top of the hive. And then next week it's now we need to get down into the subterranean system and pollute the water system, and every time it either succeeds or doesn't.
See, I do think that's cool. What I think would be cooler is to have a roleplay system where you're playing normal only war stuff, but one member of the party is Gene Stealer cult and they don't know who.
Yes.
Yeah. That would be cool.
A bit of a social deduction game, eh?
That'd be cool. I had there's one idea I've had for a long time as a GM in a 40k environment, where through like emergent storytelling, when the group inevitably encounter an NPC that becomes like either an inexplicable center of attention or an inexplicable like hanger-on that the GM just hasn't anticipated in any way, and the party sort of end up like dragging this NPC along, or you end up with an NPC who somehow miraculously survives or kills some big horrible enemy, and you just like, how on earth did that random guardsman achieve that? There's a later reveal, like after the fact, the GM decides that character was all along a Kaldis assassin.
Nice.
And it's just like revealed that they were actually an Imperial agent, and obviously they were currently in polymorph form, and that's why they were this random spod guardsman who managed to take out a Carnifex. Like I always thought that would be a fun like little spanner to throw in the works at some point for an RPG party.
Do some interesting stuff.
There's a lot of weird stuff like that in 40k, isn't there? That would fit good in that kind of situation.
Yeah, because another interesting trope that you get in the 40k setting is that if you're trying to do something that's sort of RPG based or whatever, and if you're writing a Black Library book, what you're trying to do with your protagonists is, why are these characters special and different to all the other guardsmen out there or all the other space marines out there? Like, why is it that there's something that these guys are always in the mix or always getting sent to unusual places or miraculously pulling off the impossible,
So I think Black Library Black Library do something very well with that, whereas I know Abnett has a tendency to do this, and a couple of other people, is they write a character and you think, this is a really cool character, and it just turns out they're just a random meat sack who's going to get blown away, and they've just been a plot device to move everyone on, which is quite fun.
Yeah, I guess that's another way of doing it. I know that like the issue for me with trying to create like only war campaigns and stuff, where obviously again tabletop RPG, everyone's playing a squad of guardsmen. How do you make it that your squad of guardsmen are not inside the center of attention, but always like the center of activities, that are going on whilst they're meant to just be part of this massive regiment, or whatever? Why is it they are always the ones keep getting sent to see the headmaster because they're in trouble again? Do you know what I mean? Why is it that they personally are like a squad that the Supreme Commander knows because he's fed up of seeing them on your post-action reports, or having to deal with them again because they've somehow been court-martialed again, or one of them is once again accused of being an unsanctioned psyker for some reason or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the is it Sandy Mitchell who wrote the Cyphers Kane books?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I think one of the things that they do really well with that, and basically been able to give Kane additional motivations beyond being a commissar in the Guard, with then his selfish twist on obviously wanting to just survive at all costs, is the fact that he is basically an indentured Imperial inquisitorial agent. Like, he's always having to basically act out on the secret missions of the Inquisitor that basically has him on, like, involuntarily on the payroll, as it were. And if he doesn't do as she wants, then obviously he's in for it. So a lot of the time that, like you say, as a plot device, forces his hand to have to put himself in harm's way or go deal with a certain thing or make sure someone does or doesn't die when he wouldn't normally be bothering with that himself.
Yeah. Kane is a good example of that kind of character, the sort of wrong place, wrong time character that you want to see quite a lot of.
Yeah, I want to catch up with all the Cypher Skate novels. I think I was on about book 6 when I last was on them, and I think he's had about 10 books or something like that. I think I've read more than there isn't, if that makes sense. I've read majority of them, but not caught up.
They've just released a new one this month, I think.
Yeah,
oh really?
That's one of the reasons why I want to catch up.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So I think that's a fair roundabout selection of things that we've talked about tonight. The glorious days of second edition and Bring Out Your Lead, through to the heroic endeavours of Space Marines, both in the lore and the table, and ultimately to the futile endeavour that actually is existing in the 41st millennium.
Yep. Especially if you play Death Guard.
Yeah, because they suck.
Hopefully not for long. Who knows?
No.
Maybe something might change.
I am kidding, of course.
Yeah, I do think it is an interesting time that we're on the cusp of the start of the Codex cycle, and it's going to be interesting to see what the real face of 10th edition looks like when we get those first codexes in a couple of months' time.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it'd be very telling, won't it?
Yeah.
Let the complaining commence.
Continue, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, continue.
And if you would like to direct any of those complaints or questions or queries about the future of the hobby to us directly, where can people find us all?
Well, I think, first of all, if they need to direct some complaints or queries about the 40k universe, they should put it in the comment section in YouTube, right, after they've liked and subscribed.
And dingle that dongly dong. That's what they should do. Yep.
But only if no one's watching.
And then they should like and subscribe afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, once people have done that, once they have liked and subscribed here on YouTube or given us a review or such on your podcasting platform of choice, one, we very much appreciate that. And then two, where can people be finding us all on our Instagrams? Dan, where can people find Redtooth?
You can find me as Redtooth in most places on the internet. Red_tooth with an F is me on the Instagram.
Again, for our YouTube viewers, that should already be on screen for people, and you should be able to see that and go find us on there. And Daniel, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on the Instagrams, Garage Hobbit, all one word, no spaces. Because they can. Garage Hobbit. Oh, that's not going to go away, is it? No, it's not. Nope.
I'll try my best, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
It's a good.
Go on.
It's a good evolution of the name. I like it.
It's got a certain je ne sais quoi about it. And then as for myself, as always, you can find me here on YouTube at Narrative Wargamer. You can also find me over on Instagram at Narrative Wargamer. And again, in most places, that's where you will find me. if you have been enjoying the show, and like I say, give us a like and subscribe. It does help support the show. It helps the algorithm. It helps more people find us. Helps more people enjoy our sort of light take on the grim dark, as it were, or possibly our grim take on the grim dark, depending on how we feel on any given night. And yes, there is also a Patreon. You can support the show there as well. It helps pay for all the upkeep that is involved in the podcast, because funnily enough, it isn't free to run. There are various things that need paying for, and the Patrons, I'm very grateful for the fact that they help with that. And yeah, also, in the description below, there will be details to the latest Narrative Wargamer event taking place this October. So if you are interested in attending a 2-day Narrative Crusade 40k event using the new 10th edition rules, then go check that out. Full details on event pack are below, and we'll probably have a discussion or an episode about it at some point in the near future, possibly before and after. We'll see. And yeah, I think that's everything, isn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
Well then, until next time, guys. This has been the Narrative Wargamer Podcast, helping you to discover more ways to play 40k.
Goodbye.
Bye.